This channel is supported by TrueFire. TrueFire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. Okay, I broke the streak and I've actually bought a piece of gear for about the first time in 3 months. So this is the VHT D50, which I bought off of Nick from the forum, the fretboard forum. This is a piece of gear that I bought sort of during the lockdown because obviously I'm super interested in Dumble type circuits and Dumble tones. And this is the one that I got a question the other day about whether I prefer the carrier tone thing that I had, which was the normal ODS, or the VHT D50. I actually do feel like I'm getting closer to the drive sounds that I like out of the Dumble type things with the VHT D50 than I ever did with the carrier tone. If you want to know what I'm listening to it through, in that introduction there, I was using this into a fractal load box and then into a a load box type preset of mine that I use, which is pairing a V30 type cabinet with a EV type cabinet, and then in a second I'm going to show you it sort of isolated with my actual Mesa Boogie cabinet, which has an EVM12 speaker in it, which is probably one of the more common choices to pair with this sort of amplifier. There's quite a long thread on the Gear Page forum, I think it is, about this amplifier. It's of course about the cheapest way into the Dumble kind of realm. Typically these types of circuits are reserved for fairly expensive boutique type things, so whether it's something like a Two Rock, Amplified Nation, I think Red Plate and Caroline kind of built on some kind of Dumble topology. What else is there? There are others. Feel free to name your favourite Dumble type clone stuff in the comments if you feel like doing that. I think one of the top tier ones might be Wallagan, however you say that. But essentially, for me, what the Dumble sound that I think of is more or less like a really big kind of Fenderish clean, which you get with this, and then the drive channel, which is kind of sustaining and big sounding, sort of collapsing a little bit, pick sensitive, these sorts of words. That's what I think of. I wasn't using a single pedal into it. In a second, I'm going to show you with the Walrus Audio Meraki in the loop. But my overall thoughts with it is that if you don't like this sort of thing, or this amplifier specifically, I think this is the ideal kind of first candidate for trying this sort of amp out, because I do think that they're not for everyone. So it's the Cherry Tone OTS, I think it's called. I didn't necessarily think it was better than some of my Mesa Boogie Mark amps that I had at the time, and not necessarily blown away by it. It wasn't necessarily super easy to get the sort of tones that I thought I should be able to get out of a Dumble-style amplifier. I found like the drive channel on that maybe a little bit stiff, a word like that, or maybe also a little bit harsh as well. Whereas this is actually voiced a little bit darker for me, which suits me as I'm playing with single coils. But yeah, what I would say is if you were thinking like I'd like to try one of these amps, typically it's quite expensive. Like if you were to experiment with a Two Rock TS1 or something like that, you typically have to place an order as well. And you don't really know if you're going to get on with that sort of thing necessarily. I think this is a really good bet for that. And also I think if you don't find in here any tones that you like at all, then I'd say maybe you might be better off with something that's not Dumble voiced, if that makes sense. Because I think actually you can get some really, really good stuff out of this amplifier if it's paired with a speaker that's appropriate. In the room here with this EV speaker, it sounds great. I've got the mic fairly over the cone, so if it does sound, however, to you, like a bit brash and stuff like that, that's because it's kind of a little bit over the cone. I wanted to try and make it as, not trying to tame it too much and that sort of stuff. But through the load box, super easy to get those great sustaining tones. Doesn't really need pedals. You can channel switch with it, and it's got an OD trim on the back of this to help balance that. And all of the typical stuff that you get on a Dumble clone. So there's also been some debate about which specific Dumble circuit it actually is based on. I think initially I thought, and people thought it was 183, but apparently it's not. It's apparently a different circuit, or was it 083? I can't remember exactly. But it is apparently based on a Dumble schematic. How close it is, I'm not so sure. If you look on the mod groups and stuff like that, you'll see people are kind of tinkering about with it quite a lot, replacing certain things, People that know about this amp sort of stuff would probably get a kick out of this sort of amp because it is apparently very easy to mod. So that's kind of all I wanted to talk about for the moment. I'm going to do some comparisons with my actual 2-Rock at some point if you were at all interested in that. The build quality is about what you'd expect. It's not necessarily the highest quality Tolex ever or anything like that, but this is in fact a Chinese-made hand-wired Dumble clone, and I got it for £550. So I think there is a lot of value to be had in this sort of amp if you end up finding that a Dumble-style amplifier is going to work for you. But the Dumble-style amplifier I don't think is for everyone. I think probably what we might find is that if many of us did plug into various players' Dumble amplifiers, we might not have that holy grail moment that we're expecting, possibly. I haven't plugged into one to know for sure, but I plugged into 2-Rocks, I plugged into Stereotones. They're great amps, but it's not necessarily at the volumes that I've tried them getting you straight in the ballpark of that kind of Dumble heaven. It's kind of a little bit of needs a bit of tweaking and needs a little bit of help. It's, yeah, not the easiest thing to nail down, I don't think. Super good value for money. I think, what could you get for £550 that would beat that? I'd like to know your thoughts in the comments. So I'm glad I tried it, basically, because actually really, really impressed. I don't have any channel switching amplifiers anymore, and maybe this one could be one that is worth keeping around. Now that I've got to try it after, and hopefully I might try it on a gig or something like that to see whether this could work for me. Find out. It's also got the preamp boost, which is preamp bypass / boost, which is switchable by foot switch as well. So yeah, interesting. I'll do some more videos on it. If you've got any questions about that, then I'd like to know your well, I won't be able to read the comments, will I? Probably in time. But maybe if you email me questions on the VHT D50, if you've got ideas for video stuff that you'd want me to try with this kind of thing. And yeah, because I think it had a bit of buzz around sort of 2021, sort of died back a little bit, but I still think they're making them. They're not that difficult to get hold of, and I think a bit of a sleeper. Let me know your thoughts. Cheers.